The sky darkened as colossal ships blotted out the sun, their metallic surfaces gleaming ominously against the chaos below. Commander Elara Myles sprinted through the crumbling streets of Hong Kong, her heart racing like the rapid-fire explosions echoing in her ear. The ground shook with each impact, sending clouds of dust and debris swirling through the air. She had trained for moments like this, but nothing could prepare her for the horror of an invasion. "Move! Move! We have to get the civilians to safety!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the panicked cries around her. She cut through the throng of terrified families, her ex-military instincts kicking in. Authority lingered in her presence, even if no one had time to notice the insignia on her jacket amidst the frenzy. Buildings around her crumbled like sandcastles under the relentless assault, their mighty structures failing in the face of precision bombardment. Elara glanced skyward, catching a glimpse of the ships, towering monstrosities, their sleek forms hovering with an unsettling stillness as they unleashed devastation upon the city. "What do they want?" she murmured under her breath, the question lost in the screams of those around her. A nearby skyscraper erupted, sending a shower of glass and concrete into the street. Cries of despair echoed in Elara's ears, and she pressed on. Her team had set up a makeshift evacuation center near Victoria Harbor, its wide expanse a tiny beacon of hope in a sea of despair. "Over here! This way!" she directed, ushering families toward a shuttle they had scavenged for escape. But just as they thought they might reach the safety of the vessel, the alien ships above abruptly halted their onslaught. "What are they doing?" a soldier beside her asked, staring up in disbelief as the ships paused, their ominous structures illuminated by the fires below. An unsettling silence fell over the crowd, the sound of destruction momentarily fading into a tense stillness, broken only by the distant wails of the injured. Elara watched in bewilderment as the ships began to scan the streets, their focus trained on something below. A shiver ran down her spine. "Get everyone in the shuttle," she yelled to her team. "Now!" But just as quickly as the ships had stopped, their thrusters flared to life, a rumble that rattled her bones. The invaders surged upward, defying gravity with astonishing speed, leaving behind a city on the brink of collapse. "What did they see?" Elara whispered, her heart pounding in her chest. She gazed at the empty sky, watching the last remnants of the massive vessels vanish into the void above, leaving behind a haunting silence. The city lay in ruins, and as she surveyed the destruction, a prickle of fear began to creep into her mind. What could frighten them so? In the aftermath of the chaos, Elara stood frozen amidst the debris, her thoughts racing. Something had sparked a retreat, something on the ground that they had chosen to flee from. But what? The heat of destruction hung heavy in the air, a suffocating reminder of the chaos just minutes past. Commander Elara Myles watched the crumbled remnants of Hong Kong, her heart racing as global leaders scrambled in frantic communication. An emergency coalition unit was forming, but answers remained elusive. "Commander!" called a voice from behind. It was Major Lopez, urgency etched on his face. "We need you in the command tent. The Aegis unit wants your insights on what just happened." Elara's mind raced. They had seen something, but what? With a curt nod to Lopez, she followed him through the smoky haze. The command tent buzzed with activity, the air thick with tension. "Any word from the satellites?" she asked as they entered. Streaming screens flashed images of the sky, where the ships had disappeared. "Not yet," a tech officer replied, adjusting her glasses. but we have footage of the moment they retreated. You might want to see this." Elara leaned in closer, her stomach knotting as the grainy footage played. It showed an aerial view, a glimpse of the city square just seconds before the ships vanished. A pulsing object shimmered eerily in the center. "What is that?" Elara pointed at the screen, confusion clouding her thoughts. "No idea. It doesn't match any known structure," the tech officer replied, frowning. "Get me a team," Elara commanded. "We're going to find out what the aliens saw." Minutes later, Elara and her team, including Lopez and a handful of engineers, stood in the remains of the square. The air was thick with ash, but the object pulsed faintly, almost calling to them. "Elara, look!" Lopez crouched near the edge of a fissure that had opened in the pavement, a vertical crack that sliced right down to the Earth's core. The ground shivered, and an ear-splitting metallic growl emerged. All eyes widened in horror. "Something's down there!" a young engineer shouted, backing away. Elara's breath caught in her throat. "We need to find out what's happening." Suddenly, a blinding flicker erupted from the fissure, sending a wave of energy rippling outward. The ground shook violently. The object above them glowed, responding to an unseen force. "Elara!" Lopez yelled as he stumbled, his foot slipping on the debris. Whatever lay below was waking up. The pounding in Elara's chest was no longer just fear. It was the thrill of discovery. But alongside it lay a deep apprehension. "What have we unleashed?" she whispered. As the fissure trembled with power, Elara felt a chilling truth descend upon her. They were not alone, and whatever had frightened the aliens was about to reveal itself. The ground quaked under Elara's feet, reverberating like a living thing. She gripped the edge of the fissure, staring down into the darkness. It felt as if the earth itself was waking up, and with it, ancient secrets ready to be unleashed. "Elara, we can't just stand here," Major Lopez shouted, shaking her from her thoughts. "We need to—" "Get a drone down there," she interrupted, her voice steely. "I want a visual. Now." The nervous engineer nodded, firing up the drone's systems. The small craft whirred to life, its camera descending into the dark maw of the fissure. The images flickered to life on their handheld screens as the drone plunged deeper into the earth. "Watch your feeds," Elara warned. The air was electric, charged with anticipation and dread. Suddenly, the drone's camera panned across a vast chamber, dimly illuminated by pulsating blue lights embedded in the walls. "What is this?" Lopez whispered, awe mixing with fear. "It looks like a temple, but not human-made." Elara leaned closer, her heart racing. The walls were not stone as she had expected, but a strange alloy that shimmered under the drone's light. And then she saw them. Colossal humanoid forms, merging with the metal, standing tall in eerie silence. "Are those statues?" an engineer asked, his voice barely more than a breath. "Statues?" Elara replied, narrowing her eyes against the screen's glow. "More like sentinels. We need to get a closer look." "Is that wise?" Lopez cautioned, but the look in Elara's eyes had shifted. Curiosity had ignited a fire within her. "We can't leave without knowing what's down there." "Stay alert," she ordered, determination igniting her voice. The drone descended, inching closer to one of the massive figures. The air crackled with energy, and a sound, deep, resonant, vibrated through the chamber. "Do you hear that?" the engineer asked, his voice trembling. It was a pulsing rhythm like a heartbeat. Elara's throat tightened. This was no mere sculpture. This was something alive. "Get us down there," she commanded, motioning for the rescue team. They hesitated, glancing nervously at the fissure's jagged edge. "Commander, it's too dangerous," whispered another team member, practically glued to the ground. "I know," she said, her voice steady. "But whatever those aliens saw, it's in our hands now. We don't back down." With the decision made, the team began to descend into the fissure, ropes and harnesses holding their weight. The air grew cooler, tinged with something ancient, something powerful. Elara felt it in her bones, a connection to that deep pulse. "Keep your eyes open," Elara urged as they landed softly on the chamber floor. The drone's lights fanned out, illuminating the strange figures in more detail. Their metal surfaces shifted and gleamed, casting reflections like water. "What do they signify?" Lopez asked, awe mixing with fear in his tone. Suddenly, without warning, one of the colossal statues glowed brighter, the energy seemingly drawn to them. A rumble echoed through the chamber, and then, thud, its eyes flickered open, glowing with a fierce light. "What the hell?" the engineer gasped, stumbling back. Elara raised her weapon instinctively. "Everyone stay calm." The eyes of the sentinel focused on Elara. A voice echoed in her mind, smooth and resonant. "They have come back, but they still fear us." The shock swept through the team like a wave. Elara's heart pounded, each beat underscoring the weight of the sentinel's words. The sentries acknowledged them, but what did they truly want? "Who fears you?" she asked, holding her ground even as the ground seemed to tremble beneath her. "The invaders," the voice continued, tinged with ancient sorrow. "They know of their defeat and of their betrayal." Elara exchanged glances with Lopez. "What did they see?" she murmured, her mind racing. "Everything," the sentinel responded, eyes blazing. "And they will return." Before she could process the weight of the warning, the chamber tremored once more, a sickening force coursing through the ground. The familiarity of that metallic growl reverberated again, louder this time, more urgent. "Elara!" Lopez shouted, his eyes wide with terror. "They're back!" They had awakened something long dormant. An ancient guardian, yes, but this revelation could put them all at risk. What did the sentinels truly hold? A promise or a curse? The fissure vibrated violently around them, and the walls began to crack. Elara's mind reeled, unsure what would emerge from the chaos above. Would it be salvation or death? "Get backs!" she yelled just as the ground heaved, swallowing every ounce of certainty. Elara stood frozen, staring into the glowing eyes of the awakened sentinel. The colossal figure towered above her, a fusion of metal and organic matter, pulsing with life and an energy that hummed like electricity. Each heartbeat echoed in the chamber, resonating through the depths of the earth, and her mind raced with the implications of what was unfolding. "Did you hear what it said?" Major Lopez whispered, his voice barely masking his awe. "They fear the invaders. They know them?" "Yes," she replied, her thoughts spinning. The pulse reverberated within her, blending fear with a sense of belonging to something vast, something older than humanity itself. "But why? What does it mean?" The sentinel tilted its massive head, its gaze piercing into her. "They come again. Heavier, more equipped. They know of the sentinels. They fear we have awakened," it boomed, the deep resonance shaking the ground beneath her feet. Elara felt urgency coursing through her veins. "How do we stop them?" she demanded, clutching her weapon tighter. "The Sentinels will rise, but first you must unite them. Awaken those who sleep. The greater threat approaches," Corrin intoned, its voice echoing like thunder. Before she could respond, another tremor shook the chamber. The air thickened, charged with something primal, and the drone's lights flickered wildly. The distant sound of engines roared above them, growing nearer. "Get back!" Lopez yelled, moving closer to Elara as the walls of the chamber began to crack, dust swirling in the air. "We need to—" "Shut up," Elara snapped, scanning the room for potential exits. "We can't let panic take over. We have to focus." "Focus on what?" "The doom falling from the sky." Lopez shot back, panic creeping into his voice. Suddenly, a jarring boom echoed from above, and the fissure trembled violently. Elara braced herself against the cold metal walls, fear clawing at her heart. The invaders were coming. They were right above the fissure, perhaps even conscious of their discoveries below. "What if we revive more Sentinels?" someone proposed, desperation coloring their tone. "What if that can save us?" "It's our only chance," Elara decided, her resolve hardening. "We need to wake them up. Now." She looked back at Corrin, seeking guidance. "What do we need to do to awaken the others?" "The heart of the earth binds us," Corrin explained, its voice resonating with an ancient rhythm. "Find the core and connect the energy. The Sentinels will respond, but time is fleeting." "Then let's move!" Elara shouted, her spirit ignited with urgency. "We need to work together." As the fissure continued to tremble, light from the Sentinels danced across the walls, flickering like a heartbeat. The chest of Corrin glowed brighter. With each flicker, her hope grew, but uncertainty loomed. Would the Sentinels rise as allies or as mournful watchers of their past? They scrambled toward the heart of the chamber, racing against the ticking clock of fate. The muffled sounds of alien engines thundered above, a reminder that they weren't alone in the shadows. With each step, Elara's heart pounded in time with the resonant rhythm of the Sentinels. Would they dare to rise again for humanity? And just as the ground shook violently, a chilling voice pierced the cavern. "They are here!" The warning sent shivers down her spine, and Elara turned to see the light of the Sentinels dimming, their power flickering in the dark. They had only moments before the alien forces arrived, and choices had to be made. "Now!" she yelled, rallying her team. "Find the energy source. We have to revive the Sentinels before it's too late." Above, the sky rumbled as the vessels prepared to strike again. Uncertainty hung thick around them, but the urgency to awaken their dormant protectors propelled them forward. In that moment, Elara knew they were less than human against the impending storm. They were all that stood between survival and annihilation, with the weight of their world resting on choices yet to be made. The ground shook violently as the echo of the Sentinel's voice faded into the air, sending tremors beneath Elara's feet. Dust swirled around her like restless spirits, swirling closer with each imminent rumble of the alien ships above. "We have to move! Now!" Elara shouted, urgency flooding her voice as she clenched her weapon. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown. Major Lopez fell in beside her, his face a mask of concern. "What's the plan? How do we even begin to revive them?" "Energy, remember?" Elara replied, scanning the chamber for anything that could channel the ancient power Corin had spoken of. We find the core, whatever it is, and we connect it. That's our only shot. What if they don't respond? Lopez's voice cracked, revealing his fear. What if they wake up and remember us? Then we need to convince them we're different. We're not their enemies, she said, determination hardening her resolve. We can't afford to doubt now. The team rallied behind her, scrambling as the walls continued to tremble. Over here! Look at this! One of the technicians shouted, pointing to a glimmering orb embedded in the wall. This might be it! Elara rushed toward him, heart thudding. The orb pulsed with energy, vibrant and alive. That's it! We can channel it! But how? Lopez asked, his eyes darting nervously to the crumbling ceiling. We're running out of time. Connect the system interfaces with the orb, another Aegis member suggested, nerves etching her features. We can funnel our energy into it. As they worked, the noises above grew louder, engines roaring in a hellish symphony. Their time was borrowed. Hurry! Elara snapped. Every second counts. Just then, a violent crack split the chamber, sending shards of rock cascading down like meteors. Hold on, she yelled, moving to shield her team. The fissure above them widened, threatening to swallow them whole. Stand back! We need to stabilize that! Lopez shouted, rushing to an interface terminal, his hands racing over controls. I can reroute power. Just do it! Elara shouted, stomach twisting as another tremor rocked the ground. They worked frantically, their hands flying, codes and data flashing in frantic urgency. With one final press, Lopez shouted, I'm in! The chamber thrummed with a new intensity as the orb burst to life, connecting with ancient systems in a colorful burst of energy. Luminous lines spread across the walls and down the statues, illuminating their forms and echoing with an ancient power. But then, a deep, haunting voice echoed from the depths of the chamber. You dare awaken us? Elara's heart raced, but she pressed on. We're not your enemies. We need your help. Your kind failed once before, Corin said, its voice booming, sensing the turmoil in the fissure. You've come to ask for aid, but will you prove worthy? Prove worthy? Elara clenched her teeth, desperation clawing at her. We're fighting for our survival. Your enemies are back, and they're not finished. A shadow loomed large, a sentinel stirring. Its gaze fell upon Elara, suspicion etched in its ethereal glow. You awaken at a time of peril. You hold ancient blood on your hands. Before she could respond, the chamber jolted. The ground began to collapse as alien drones swarmed the surface, their shadows rippling against the walls. She could hear the distant blasts above, the chaos growing louder, closer. Make a choice, Corin thundered. We can rise and defend, or we can fall into the void once more. Elara's pulse quickened. There were no guarantees, but the Sentinels had a chance to become humanity's salvation, or perhaps their judgment. We'll fight together, she shouted, eyes blazing with determination. You can trust us! The Sentinel's gaze narrowed, metal glimmering ominously. Trust is not given lightly, human. As the chamber began to quiver, Elara knew the moment of truth was at hand. Then prove it, she cried, rallying her team. Awaken the rest. We have to fight together. Suddenly, a blinding flash enveloped everything as the ceiling cracked wide open, the sound of alien technology roaring like a storm above them. Time stretched. Fate hung in the balance. In that moment of chaos, Elara locked eyes with Corrin. The sentinel pulsed, glittering like a star, and then she heard it, a whisper echoing in the darkness around her. Doubt not who you are. Make your choice. With the alien drones descending and the chamber shaking, the stakes shot through the roof as Elara scrambled to save them all, aware that the only thing she could trust was the shared fear that binded them. Now! She screamed, hope and trepidation mingling in her chest. Let's awaken them, before it's too late. And just as they began to connect the final lines of power, she felt the walls tremble and heard the sinister hum of advancing alien forces. Would the Sentinels rise for humanity? Or would they stand by as witnesses to their demise? The answer loomed large as the ground split beneath them, darkness testing her resolve. The chamber roared to life as Elara's heart raced, the echoes of ancient voices swirling around her like a tempest. Dust plumed from cracked stone, blurring her vision, but her focus narrowed to the flickering orb pulsating with energy. This was their last chance. Do it now, she commanded, urgency tightening her throat as the tremors grew more violent, shaking loose shards from the ceiling. Lopez's fingers danced across the interface, sweat glistening on his brow. I'm in, but the power flow is unstable. Redirect it. We need their energy, Elara replied, her grip tightening on her weapon as she braced against the chaos. The air hummed with tension, reflecting the growing urgency. Are you sure they'll help us? Lopez pressed, anxiety lacing his tone. What if they remember? We can't back down now, she said, fierce determination rising within her. We're fighting for survival. The aliens are coming. The ground quaked again, and Corrin loomed large, its glowing eyes piercing through the swirling dust. You dare awaken us? We need your help, Elara shouted, her voice straining against the rising cacophony. Your enemies are back, and they're stronger. The Sentinel's gaze wavered, caught between suspicion and the calling of duty. Your kind failed once before, it warned, its voice echoing like thunder. You awaken at a time of peril. Then let us prove ourselves, Elara insisted, desperation fueling her every word. We'll fight together against the invaders, but you have to trust us. Trust is not given lightly, human, Corrin replied, its form shimmering ominously with uncertainty. We don't have time for doubt, Elara's voice sliced through the din. You want to know if we're worthy? Look around you. We can't fight this battle alone. Suddenly a tremor pulsed through the chamber, a foreboding signal that the alien drones were closing in. The walls shuddered as rocks fell, cutting the air with a sharp crack. Make a choice, Corrin bellowed, the cavern vibrating with urgency. We can rise and defend or succumb to the void once more. We'll fight, Elara shouted, rallying her team against the encroaching shadows. Desperate hope mingled with fear as she locked eyes with Corrin. Awaken the rest. We need you. Another violent jolting sent debris crashing around them. The chamber began to collapse, and chaos erupted as panic fluttered through her team. We won't get another chance, Elara pleaded. Let's bring them to life before it's too late. As the final connection sparked to life, a surge of energy roared through the chamber. The statues began to shimmer and pulse with light. But then, without warning, darkness lurked like a predator just beyond the threshold, hunger brewing in the silence. Doubt not who you are, Corrin whispered, a strange glimmer of recognition flickering in its ethereal eyes. Make your choice. Elara felt the weight of the moment settle in. The Sentinels might refuse their aid, or worse, awaken to their ancient grudges. She had no choice. The stakes were too high. "Now!" she screamed, her voice rising in desperation as the ground split beneath them, and alien forces breached the surface. Shadows loomed closer, the air thick with the promise of violence. All she could hear was the pulse of power building around her, mingling with the distant roars of invaders approaching. The room trembled. Her heart echoed with dread. In that breathless instant, she recognized what was at stake, a desperate plea woven into the fabric of existence. Would they rise to defend humanity, or would tragedy be the legacy left behind? Waves of dread washed over her as she braced for what was to come. Would they awaken allies or unleash judgment? The room shook violently, and time stretched infinitely before her eyes. Her conviction hardened. Let's awaken them before it's too late. But then, the echoing pulse of darkness surged, a chilling reminder that the fight was far from over. Fear and desperation blurred, leaving only one thing clear. There was no turning back now. The ground shook violently beneath Elara's feet. Dust clouds billowed, choking the air around her. Time was running out. "Hurry! We need to awaken them now!" Elara shouted, her voice strained but resolute as chaos enveloped the chamber. Lopez's fingers flew over the interface, eyes darting between screens. "I'm trying. The energy flow is fluctuating. We're losing power." Elara gripped her weapon tighter, scanning the shadows creeping closer. The echoes of impending doom reverberated through the stone walls. "We can't afford a failure. If they sense our fear, we're done." Corinne's colossal form loomed before them, glowing with an eerie light. "You awaken ancient sentinels at a time of great peril. Do you not fear the consequences?" "Please," she cried, desperation mingling with anger. "Our enemies are returning. We need your power to protect our world." The sentinel hesitated, its countenance a mask of doubt, flickering with fragments of its memories. "Your kind failed before, lost to betrayal. Why should I aid you?" "Because we're different now," Elara yelled, heart pounding in her chest like a war drum. "We don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past. We want to fight for our home, for you." The ground trembled again, louder and more insistent. Elara could feel the dread building, creeping like a shadow across the chamber. "Corinne, the drones are getting closer. We don't have time for this." Suddenly alarms blared from the interface, red lights flashing ominously. "They're here!" Lopez shouted, panic lacing his voice. Corinne's eyes sparked with ancient defiance. "Then you must decide. To awaken is to risk awakening the past." "Awakening is our only hope," Elara shot back, fear igniting her resolve. "Time is slipping," Corinne warned, the urgency twisting its words. "Choose now, or all will be lost." "No!" Elara's heart raced as debris tumbled from above, crashing down around them. "We cannot let them win." Lopez's hands trembled over the controls. "If I divert energy from the Matrix, we might get a boost, but it could cause a malfunction." "Just do it. We have to try." The chamber groaned as Corinne stepped closer, a shimmer of recognition igniting in its gaze. "If you truly wish to defend your world, awaken us. But understand, there are bonds you will need to sever." "That's a risk I'm willing to take," Elara shouted, urgency flooding her veins as the shadows loomed closer, a swirling darkness hungry for chaos. With a final push, Lopez redirected the energy. The chamber exploded with light and noise, sentinels shaking as they began to awaken. Energy crackled through the walls, and Elara felt the weight of history pressing down. But then, alongside the furious rumble of the awakening Sentinels, a shadow raced through the fissure, a chilling whisper filling the air. "They are coming." Elara's breath hitched. The vague threat hung heavily in the atmosphere, mingling with the dust. Would they awaken allies or unleash ancient grudges? The darkness crept closer, and the room trembled, leaving no room for second guesses. A wave of dread washed over her as she braced for the inevitable. "We have to get ready," she yelled, adrenaline surging as the ground split again. As the cavern erupted in chaos, Elara caught Corrin's gaze, now brimming with uncertainty. Shadows writhed at the entrance, and the world outside echoed with the promise of violence. "Fight!" she screamed, heart racing against the storm. "We have to unite, we cannot lose." But against the backdrop of impending doom, the heartbeat of darkness rose, consuming all hope. Would they rise, or was this the beginning of their end? In that moment, as the ground quaked beneath the assault of alien forces, Elara knew there was no turning back now. The ground trembled like a living thing, an ominous heartbeat that sent shivers through Elara's spine. Dust rained down, choking her lungs with the vestiges of ancient fears. "Lopez, we're out of time," she shouted, urgency clawing at her throat. They had to awaken the Sentinels before oblivion closed in. His fingers danced across a flashing interface. "I'm trying. The power's fluctuating. It might not hold." "Hold it together!" Panic laced her voice as shadows crept closer. The air quivered with dread, a knife's edge between life and annihilation. "We must do this." Corrin's colossal form towered before them, its blue luminescence pulsating like a dim star. "You wish to awaken what sleeps. Are you prepared for the consequences?" Elara faced the Sentinel, heart pounding against her ribcage. "Our enemies are closing in. We need your strength to repel them." Its gaze flickered, haunted by memories of betrayal. "You humans strayed once before. Why should I grant you my power now?" "Because we're different. We've learned," Elara pressed, anguish mixing with fervor. "We want to protect our world. For you." The ground shook violently. Elara felt time slipping away. "Corrin, they're coming. We don't have a choice." "Then choose wisely," Corrin intoned, radiating ancient authority. "Awakening is not without its price." "Then let that price be paid," Elara cried, desperation igniting her resolve. The interface emitted a frantic blare. "We're not ready!" Lopez shouted, panic flooding his features. "Do it!" she yelled back, despair clawing through her. "We can't let them win." Fissures trembled underfoot, foreboding shadows advancing like whispers of doom. "The past is vast and treacherous," Corrin cautioned. "To awaken is to reopen old wounds." "Then we'll heal them," Elara declared, fierce determination surging within her. "If we don't unite, we will be devoured." Lopez hesitated, but then redirected energy from their dwindling power. A flare of light shot through the chamber as the ancient Sentinels responded, shaking off millennia of slumber. A noise, a horrific scrape, echoed from the fissure. A chill swept through the air. "They are coming." Elara's breath hitched. It wasn't just the aliens. It felt deeper, darker, a primal threat clawing to the surface. "Prepare yourselves," she shouted, gripping her weapon tightly, resolve hardening in her chest. "We will fight." Desperation morphed into dread, a tide rushing in as chaos unspooled around them. The shadows swelled, roiling with malice. Corin regarded her, shifting uncertainty etched into its features. You tread a dangerous path. Then we stand together, Elara vowed, adrenaline surging. We can't afford to hold back. Outside, the howls of alien drones pierced the air, a cacophony of annihilation. As they activated, a pulse erupted through the chamber, but the darkness stirred, hungry and alive. Without warning, the ground split further, fissures yawning like the maw of a beast. Now! Elara screamed, the world collapsing into chaos around them. Would they be allies in this moment, or would the past's ghost consume them all? The shadows lashed out, a whirlwind of darkness reaching for them, and as Elara's breath caught in her throat, she realized they weren't just awakening allies. They might be unleashing a nightmare. "Fight, or we perish!" she roared, the shadows coiling tighter with every heartbeat. Would the Sentinels heed her call, or would they awaken the true horror lurking beneath? In that moment of decision, fate hung in the balance, darkness relentless at their heels. The ground roared like a beast awakening from slumber, and Elara felt it in the marrow of her bones. Dust rained down, thick with dread and ancient fear. "Lopez, we're out of time!" she shouted, urgency clawing at her throat. They had to awaken the Sentinels or face annihilation. His fingers raced over the console, desperate. "I'm trying. The power's fluctuating. It might not hold." Panic swept over his face, mirroring her own dread. "Hold it together." Shadows crept closer, an electric terror shimmering in the air. "We must do this now." Corin loomed above them, its massive form glowing faintly, radiating both power and history. "You wish to awaken what sleeps. Are you prepared for the consequences?" Elara's heart thundered against her ribcage. "Our enemies are closing in. We need your strength. We can't lose again." Corin's gaze flickered, haunted by echoes of betrayal. Humanity strayed once before. Why should I grant you my power now? "Because we've changed," Elara pressed, desperation seeping into her voice. "We fight to protect our home, not to conquer." The ground shook violently, fissures opening beneath their feet. "Corinne, they're coming. We don't have any choice." "Then choose wisely," Corin warned, its voice grave. "Awakening is wrought with peril." "Then let that price be paid," Elara cried, the fire of determination igniting her resolve. The interface blared in response. "We're not ready," Lopez shouted, his panic contagious. "Do it!" she screamed, knowing every second counted. "We can't let them win." Fissures trembled ominously, shadows advancing like whispers of doom. "The past is vast and treacherous," Corin cautioned, its voice filled with foreboding. "Awakening might reopen old wounds." "Then we'll heal them," Elara declared fiercely. "If we don't unite, we will be devoured." Lopez hesitated, but his fingers found the energy flow again, redirecting power to the awakening Sentinels. A brilliant flare erupted from the chamber, illuminating the darkness as the ancient guardians began to stir, breaking free of millennia of slumber. But beneath their feet, a deeper noise rumbled, a horrific scrape echoing through the chamber. The ground shuddered, and fear clawed at Elara's gut. "Prepare yourselves," she shouted, gripping her weapon as dread surged within her. "We will fight!" Chaos enveloped them, shadows swelling and roiling, alive with malice. Corrin regarded her, uncertainty flickering in its eyes. You tread a dangerous path. Then we stand together, Elara vowed, adrenaline cutting through her fear. We can't afford to hold back. Outside, the howls of alien drones pierced the air, a cacophony that promised death. A pulse of energy erupted as the Sentinels awakened, but from below, the darkness stirred, hungry and alive. Now! Elara screamed, the world around her collapsing into chaos. Would they rally as allies, or would the ghosts of the past consume them all? The shadows lashed out like tendrils, reaching for them, and in that breathless moment she realized they might not just be awakening allies, they could be unleashing a nightmare. Fight, or we perish! She roared, the shadows coiling tighter with every heartbeat. Would the Sentinels heed her, or would they awaken the true horror lurking beneath? In that moment of reckoning, fate hung in the balance, darkness relentless, just a heartbeat away. And Elara's thoughts screamed at her. Make this count. There's no turning back now. Silence stretched over what remained of the earth, thick and suffocating, as the dust of destruction settled into a melancholic haze. The ground, once a battleground seething with chaos, now lay eerily still, cracked and barren, a testament to the horrors that had transpired. Elara Myles stood amidst the rubble, her heart heavy with loss, breath hitching as she gazed into the void where so many had found their end. The cost of their fight gnawed at her insides. Friends and allies, fallen in the unforgiving dance of war, echoed like ghosts in her memory, their faces alive with laughter now reduced to the sorrow of absence. Lopez, her loyal technician, his hands had once flown over consoles with confidence, now lay still in the depths of the awakened chamber. The Sentinels stood around her, colossal and silent, guardians of an age long forgotten, yet even they felt less than victorious. Energy crackled faintly around them, a residual glow of awakened power mingling with the despair that clung to the air. Why does it feel this way? Elara whispered to herself, her voice cracking under the weight of resilience and regret. We've turned the tide against the Voidborn, but at what cost? In the looming shadow of the Sentinels, she could almost hear Corrin's voice echoing in her mind. The past is vast and treacherous. A truth she had ignored in the throes of battle now reverberated with unsettling clarity. Power had come at a price, and the Sentinels, this ancient race of defenders, bore a history stained with suspicion and betrayal. Their allegiance was fragile, binding like a thread that could snap at any moment. Elara stepped through the wreckage, each stride a reminder of what they had survived. The horizon painted a solemn image. Layers of cloud moved like regretful specters, dimming the once vibrant skyline. Hope flickered within her, not entirely extinguished, but wavering like a candle's flame in the wind. We won this battle, she murmured into the emptiness, trying to convince herself. But what if the war is yet to come? Far from her, the alien fleets lingered in orbit, their hulking ships like ominous thunderheads now retreating. Could it be fear that drove them away? Or was it something else? Something more complicated than simple defeat? What horrors beyond the stars lurked to elicit such panic? The unanswered questions hung heavy in the air, a melody of uncertainty she couldn't ignore. A whisper of wind brushed against her cheek, a sensation that felt eerily electric, as if the atmosphere knew secrets she did not. She turned her gaze skyward, searching the swirling heavens. What did you see? She spoke softly, almost pleading with the universe to divulge its mysteries. The collective memories of those lost surged within her, a bond unbroken even by death. "I can't fail you," she pledged, fists clenching. "I will find a way." This wasn't just a quest for survival. It was a pact forged in the fires of sacrifice and despair. Somehow, amidst the wreckage, a flicker of redemption sparked, tangible and within reach. As she squinted against the fading light, shadows shifted abruptly, and a glimmer of steel caught her eye. A sentinel's eye flickered to life, seemingly scanning the horizon in search of threats long since past. A shiver ran down Elara's spine. "Corin?" she called hesitantly, heart racing with fear and hope. "We are not finished," the sentinel's voice echoed through the remnants of the ruined city, reverberating with ancient power. "There is a promise to keep." A shudder of realization coursed through Elara. Maybe they hadn't awakened all that lay dormant. Perhaps they had only scratched the surface of something more significant. An unexpected alliance, an unforeseen force. Was there a chance for convergence? For unity beyond their current understanding? Elara inhaled deeply, feeling the tug around her heart. The Sentinels held a key to the future yet unclaimed, and in the depths of despair, hope shimmered anew. The remnants of civilizations lost whispered in the breeze, reminding her that redemption often came from the most profound darkness. "We will prepare," she declared, heart steadying in tempo with her will. "Together, we might just stand against what comes next. We've awakened the past, and with it, we'll forge our future." As she stared into the brewing twilight, a promise surged within, whispers of unity, perhaps the last thread that could weave the remnants of their broken world into something extraordinary once more. She stood at the edge of the crumbling city square, staring into the horizon where the last tendrils of twilight skirted the jagged skyline. Silence clawed at her throat, a stark contrast to the chaos that had enveloped Earth only weeks before. What remained of the streets lay draped in dust, the echoes of battle still whispering through the air. The remnants of her world, disjointed buildings, shattered dreams, spoke to the cost of their defiance. Amidst the ruins, Elara Myles felt the weight of loss keenly. Innocent lives extinguished in a conflict they never asked for. Friends and comrades, once vibrant with hope, were now shadows in her mind. Each step through the debris was a step through the memories of laughter and courage turned to ash. "How many more?" she murmured, voice barely above a whisper. The question lingered, heavy with dread. Slowly, she turned her gaze skyward. The alien fleet had retreated, but their presence hung in the air like a dark cloud, foreboding and ominous. Why had they fled so suddenly? What did they see that struck such dread into their hearts? Behind her, the silent sentinels stood sentinel, colossal figures bearing ancient histories. Their energy pulsed faintly in the quiet, a reminder that they too were part of a legacy, a bond forged through sacrifice. As she walked, Elara recalled Corin's words. The past is vast and treacherous, a truth she now understood all too well. Their ancestors had betrayed the very guardians that had protected them, and here she was, desperate to prove humanity's worth. "We can't falter now," she whispered, half to herself, half to the ghosts of those lost. Fingers clenched into fists, determination igniting deep within her. They had turned the tide against the Voidborn, but the battle was not yet over. She could feel it, an electric charge in the atmosphere, as if the universe awaited her next move. What if their transformation did not mark the end, but rather a beginning? Together, she vowed. The word resonated, echoing through her heart like an anthem. We can prepare. We will rise stronger. And in that earnest promise, the remnants of despair faded, replaced with the glimmer of hope. With renewed vigor, she approached Corin, the Sentinel's eye illuminating the growing darkness. What comes next? She asked, voice steady. The Sentinel surveyed the horizon, its voice resonant with untold power. There is more to awaken than you realize. A shiver raced down her spine. Perhaps they had only scratched the surface. A new alliance was possible, a confluence of past and future. What lay buried beneath their feet was not merely a remnant of fear, but potentially hope, an opportunity waiting to be seized. Elara squared her shoulders, the weight of resolve draping around her like a cloak. She faced the future unflinchingly. The world had been torn asunder, but in its shattered remains, hope flickered. They would reclaim what was lost. As the first stars blinked into visibility, she turned to the group of survivors who had come to stand with her, determined and fierce. We will not shy away from what lies ahead. Together, we will explore the darkness and bring forth the dawn. And as they moved forward into the gathering night, her mind echoed with questions, fears, yet also possibilities. Where would their journey take them? What threats still lurked beyond the stars? But she had learned something essential. The past, while vast, does not dictate the future. In that moment, Elara Myles felt the flood of hope surging within, as if she could almost touch the unseen threads connecting them. Together. For one last time, she looked back at the ruins that whispered of loss and courage, and she knew, whatever came next, they had already taken the first step. The stars twinkled down, a cosmic assurance. They stood not alone in the universe. United, they would face whatever horror or wonder awaited them. As the ship ascended from Earth, silence fell over the land, and within that quiet, the galaxy awaited its reckoning. We've awakened the past, she said, resolute. Let's see what it brings. And in the shadows of the universe, as distant eyes watched from unknown realms, something stirred, knowing that humanity's journey had just begun.